Hello, people of the internet. Today we're playing Halo 2 with Structor
Yes.
and Fire Ninja 101.
Hi. And by the way, that sounds like such a rip-off intro from Game Theory.
No, this is not a rip-off of anybody. No one.
Yeah,
Anyways,
from the very
so-
intro. Like, literally.
I just said
Game
hello,
Theory's
everyone.
intro- Game Theory's intro is, "Hello, Internet, welcome to Game Theory." Yours
Hello,
is,
Internet.
"Hello,
I said
people
hello.
of the Internet."
There is no rip-off. Is there?
anyways,
Structure.
Okay, whatever, I'll just be messing with my computer in the background.
Okay. So,
yeah, good stuff. We actually, this video got cut out last time around 19 minutes. We had about 5 minutes more of arguing with Adam, but I guess we won't be able to see that one now, will we?
but we were basically talking about level design and
Level design and cutscenes.
Yeah.
So it's like you heard a little bit of it in the previous Halo 2 video. And about this game, I suppose it is alright level design sometimes.
yeah,
At the worst of times, it can get very irritating. Like say there's a level Uprising later on, which literally has a spawn point right next to an area with a brute with a very powerful weapon. So basically you can't walk 2 feet without getting killed by him.
yeah.
That's my least favorite level of this game. But there's a lot of other levels where, especially when you're playing it co-op, it'll seem like the your friend will just pop in through walls or something at seemingly random locations. Like,
One thing which
Good.
this game doesn't have going for it, it just sucks at, is both linear and non-linear level design.
yeah, it doesn't really, it's trying to do linear, but it's not doing it very well in certain areas. Like, I mean, it's not all terrible, but I feel like I get lost one too many times in this game. Halo 3 is much better. The only level that people really say you can get lost in and they really don't dislike is Cortana, which is near the end and most people just skip it. And I'm one of those people, really, nobody likes that level. There are some really good levels in this game, of course, like Quarantine Zone and such.
But one thing which this, another thing which this game kind of failed on is the idea of,
Hey, they're leaving
physics. It's not very refined in physics.
Huh. You mean like the moon jumps or so, or?
Moon jump, the non-explanation of how Master Chief can survive so many pound or things of square force on him if the armor's supposed to be ridiculously heavy. It just doesn't explain enough.
Yeah, at least the that's all. At least it seems all right in the gameplay. I had a few problems with Half-Life with like the acceleration, which can be a little fast at times. Thankfully they fixed that in Half-Life 2, I believe. But Halo generally has good acceleration and such, and good jumping physics, despite the fact that you don't really have to jump at all, and
You just float.
well, you don't have to jump in jumping puzzles or so like you do in Half-Life. Of course, some of the jumping puzzles were actually interesting in Half-Life. I'm not a big fan of first-person platforming because, well, you really can't see what's going on very well, and you often fall to your death simply because you don't know where your feet are. Like, say,
Fire Ninja.
just like simple stuff with like the third-person camera, like drop shadows, things that you never thought you'd really rely upon. Once they're taken away, it's makes things really difficult.
Well, I guess that's where
but-
the gameplay has to be good enough.
Yeah, and Half-Life is really good with its gameplay. That's what I really like about Half-Life. It has a nice linear path. The level design is very good. I love the story, of course, and the shooting's good.
The DLC is good.
Segments are good. I like basically everything except for like the physics and the whole first-person platforming problems. Which aren't that big of a deal, I suppose. They don't like make me dislike the game. And like some people say it gets boring, like how long it is. I don't think so, really. I mean, it is a very long game, but I do think it kept my interest up until about the end, when I stopped playing for a while near the final boss. But,
You know what's really funny?
came back later.
You know what's really funny is, while I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, tell me what you like in the comments, but like, I'm just one of those people who just sticks with Minecraft and Mario and pretty much Nintendo and all the cheap kiddie games that everyone plays.
Well, they're not bad. They're still the cheap kiddie games. I'm gonna use air quotes. They're not bad. If anything, they're a lot more quality than, let's say, something like a Watch Dogs.
True.
Where
Well,
it was...
though I personally think, and other YouTubers agree, the Wii U is also one of the is not too shabby as far as graphics go too, and it might be one of the most underrated systems that Nintendo might ever see.
But what about, Sega? No one remembers them. The Sega Dreamcast was really, really good. Really, really advanced.
Yeah.
Well, they
I don't
messed
know
up.
about
So
that. I mean, it
totally
had,
deserve to be remembered, in my opinion. They just make great games as a third party.
So did,
Yes.
Nintendo
I'm not
messed up, too.
I'm not certain if I understand Dreamcast fully. Like, they basically knew when it was coming out that the PS2 was going to come out and destroy them. So, it felt like they weren't really trying with some of the things. Like, say they used a really obscure disc format called, like, GD-ROM. Like, a gigabyte disc. Read-only memory, which basically was part of what killed it because the PS2 had DVDs.
So just a sec. I have a question which we can answer at the moment for our personal favorites, and your YouTuber follower guys can comment below. What's the Xbox of the PS2 generation? 360, or was that just Xbox?
The original.
Okay, so then which one is better, GameCube, PS2, or Xbox?
Quality
PS2.
or quantity? Because, the GameCube was really, really good. I mean, people still know of the GameCube.
Yeah, it had a lingering memory. I grew up with the GameCube personally, so I'm a bit biased.
I grew up with both the GameCube and the, I keep on wanting to call it Sony entertainment device.
The PS2, you mean?
Yeah. I think it was, yeah.
I'm surprised people people can say that like the N64 is better than the PlayStation and the GameCube is better than the PS2, because probably just because of my own tastes. But the problem with the GameCube and the N64 is that they didn't really have as much variety as the PlayStation. Like niche genres sort of get pushed aside. Of course, there's many good games for like the GameCube and the N64, but at the same time, they with all those niche genres, all the third-party developers, they usually stay with Sony.
Yeah.
At least until the PS3, which sort of killed it for me.
The PS3 was more of a cheap money grab.
Yeah, and then of course,
The
by
PS
now, of course, the PC rules.
The Commodore, though, there's a thing which you would never hear of. Now, the Commodore 64. Now, for the people who don't know what a Commodore is, it is like the only reason games. It is a very good reason why games exist. It's not the
You
only
know why they
reason.
call it the 64?
Because it was
Not
the
because it's a 64-bit system, because it has 64 kilobytes of RAM.
I thought it was because it was the 64th attempt to come up with something good.
Put in context.
Oh, there was the Virtual Boy, and like, seriously, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I never even heard about the Virtual Boy until like 2 or 3 years ago, because that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
Nintendo's greatest folly, really.
Well,
They're-
except from what they have been doing nowadays, which is just cheap money grabs.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I mean, I can complain
admit
about
that
some of
the
the
new
things that Nintendo
3DS
does.
You gotta admit, the new 3DS is actually a pretty good system.
Well, I mean,
I
who's
can
gonna-
complain about what Nintendo does now, but it's nothing compared to some of their follies in the past. Like say using the cartridge format in the N64 or so. Like, they're doing all right. Like I mean, come on, the Wii U has a lot of good games. The 3DS has a lot of good games. You can't really complain too much.
You know what's really funny is everyone says that there's great games for this system. The system is so great. And I think the best two examples of that are the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube.
well,
Everyone hails them for being the best consoles, particularly the N64 that gets an easy ride because of Super Mario 64. But seriously, beyond Mario Kart 64 and Super Mario 64, like, off the top of your head, what average gamer really knows of any other games of the Nintendo 64 era? And the same
Exactly.
thing with GameCube. It's Mario games and its Mario Kart games stand out, and maybe even the Monkey Balls, but
Well,
beyond that, really.
well, who knows of Sega nowadays? Who knows about Sonic?
Like, everyone has heard of Sonic. It's just that
Yeah,
no one even knows his games.
Yeah, and everyone
Except
really
for-
makes fun of him nowadays. He's like,
Except for the really good old games, and I played a lot of them. The games that came out with the Sega Genesis.
yeah, the CD version was the best.
Actually, the cartridge was really, really good.
Gone down!
I don't know if you
Oh, come on, you gotta get that parallax scrolling, remember?
Oh yeah, that's a
Cartridge
good
version doesn't
point.
have that as much.
But I mean, it's still. This might be my little old bias, but I think Sega. I think that Sega is completely underrated for the amount of things which they've done really well.
Yeah, the Sega CD I think is a good example of that. I think it was sort of I don't know if I should say like before its time or so, or ahead of its time. However, the CD was
technically, by that same-
huge back then.
But technically, even though it's terrible, the Virtual Boy technically was ahead of its time.
But
Yeah,
How
but
bad it was ahead of its time, and was probably the most likely reason why it was bad.
well, it also caused eye strain and a whole bunch of other bad medical
That's why I was
problems.
saying, it's ahead of the time. It was ahead of its time, and they didn't exactly have too much good technology, and so thus the headaches and whatnot.
Yeah, but I think the CD is different. Like, it allows you to pack in more information. The discs are cheaper, which is something big for developers that, of the time as well as consumers of the time. And also, the sound is like miles ahead. So
It's true.
surprised that
I guess the reason, going back to your comment about Nintendo slipping with their cartridges, remember they had to package at first their consoles as a toy, and then they didn't exactly want to stray from the formula that had worked. So
yeah, I personally think that was a terrible decision myself, simply because the cartridges were too expensive and it drove away pretty much all the third-party developers, which is a problem they're still having today. They promised sort of fast loading times, but
It didn't. It wasn't
people
fast.
like heard at that time. So
you know what's kind of funny though, now that you mention it, is all their devices that use cartridges, even the 3DS still uses cartridges to a point. They have a faster loading time than the other consoles.
yeah, it was the right idea for handheld since disc skip and such, and nowadays flash memory is actually able to pack more on.
And
But
Sega did a
back then,
very...
optical media was less expensive, and like think of having a solid state drive in 1996. It has not very much information. I think you could like 8 megabytes tops.
And also, one thing which I do have to say about cartridges is that they don't have as much memory. Or I believe they don't have as much memory. I could be wrong.
Yeah, they have much less memory, but you mean storage. Of course. Of course, I really hate the term memory with used when referring to like data, because it's totally right, but it's still confusing because of RAM, or whether it's RAM or storage.
Everything.
But yeah,
They didn't have enough storage, RAM, anything.
No, I'm just being the voice of Nintendo here, because I'm just a fan of Nintendo.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons they decided to stick with the cartridges, even if it had a lower memory, thus the weird graphics. Look at Mario 64. It's a very basic graphics, and it's not nearly as good as today.
Look at
They can still put down the cartridge because, in their opinion, with the Virtual Boy, they strayed from the formula and they paid the price. And so they did not want to take another risk.
Look
Yeah,
at
Sony, but I mean the Saturn and the PlayStation had been out a year and such. I don't know.
But I mean, look at
I was never a big fan of the whole cartridge thing, especially considering I have good memories of like taking it in and out over and over again. Like, once you get it working, I suppose the cartridge is alright, but...
Well, of course, those refurbished things from GameStop aren't much good. Pretty much any vintage software now is overpriced, and you won't be satisfied with it because you're spoiled with today's technology. You gotta remember that they didn't have that kind of stuff when our parents were were our age.
well, they did have Dig
Yeah,
Dug,
PlayStation...
and that was... And that, I still think Dig Dug looks better than nearly a lot of modern day games.
Yeah, PlayStation was, with cartridges, PlayStation was at least able to, you just put the disc in and it would work pretty much most of the time as long as it's not scratched up.
Yeah.
So that's what
there are some problems with PlayStation.
Yeah, of course, I know about those, like it wasn't as powerful as the N64, the 3D graphics are even worse on the PlayStation than they were on the N64.
But I mean, they corrected all those with PlayStation 2. And,
well, yeah, of course.
And one thing which I do
but by
have
then
to
it was pretty much less than the point.
You know what I find noteworthy too is there's the people that like the old consoles and there's the people who hate it. There's the consoles that have been praised as gems of their time, like the games. But if you look at game theory, they have proven too that the gamers don't want particularly too fancy. If you look Mario Kart series, it has been really successful, but say Nintendo 64, it only sold a couple million copies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, I mean, we can't.
I guess.
Struck you all dumb.
But what about Sega? They don't get like any recognition.
Well,
Whatever that
let's
was.
list all the
Sega
stupid
now.
decisions. Let's list all the stupid decisions they made, I suppose.
But
like
I mean,
with Saturn.
The Saturn, let's see. The Saturn was that thing which was supposed to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was supposed to be
Me inside your head now.
DVD thing, right?
No, it wasn't. I think
Yeah, it was the
you might be
DVD
thinking of
thing.
Dreamcast, but the Saturn. I mean, can I even list the problems? Like, once Sega saw what was happening with the PlayStation, they were like, "Uh-oh, we gotta correct our course." And they added like 15 more processors to the Saturn. So now it's like has 2 graphics processors, a sound processor, like 2 CPUs, like ridiculous hardware that no programmer in the right mind could use. At least the ones in America, which didn't want to deal with that garbage.
It also did what Nintendo.
Yeah, and then they tried to get out the Sonic game on the Saturn, which totally failed as well, which
I like crazy.
also meant the US didn't get much on there. Get much out of it, at least.
Though a
And,
few
yeah,
problems, which I
It's like,
think.
So technically, one could still state that the Wii U had some problems, and for that case, although the Wii is what recognized as one of the best systems, it still had a few problems too. Just look at Wii Sports Resort. What was the big thing? Wii Motion Plus. Well, it only took 3 years for them to realize that they needed an additional accessory to do what it was marketed to do. Like, it did up to a point, but then it stopped. Not to mention that there was a shortage in the US, so I guess that Wii Motion Plus was, in a sense, a re-release of the Wii.
yeah, that's what they do that often with like the new console or the new accessory or so, is they limit the amounts that they actually produce in order to increase demand and such, and increase the value of the items.
Yeah. No.
Nobody really likes it, but it's what they do.
So technically that's not exactly what Nintendo is known to do.
Well, Nintendo has made some really stupid decisions.
Yes, I recognize that. I think every company has made its stupid decisions. It's just which side are you on? So I'm on the side of Nintendo. I look past that. You are on the side of Sega. You look past Sega's mistakes.
I'm more on the side of Valve. I think that I am on the Valve side.
Chief,
So you're on the
that's-
PC side, I
we're
suppose.
taking this fight to the surface.
Did you even have to question? I mean,
I suppose you're right.
I mean, honestly. But we finished the first mission, and so I'm gonna leave this episode here.
The message just repeats.
So you guys
Interesting
have
discussion now.
a very
Well, thank
interesting.
you guys for having me as your guest. It was a great time.
Thank you Thank you for
Engaging with
joining
you.
us. And yeah. So you guys have a wonderful day. See
Or
ya.
night. But I'm guessing you're going to be doing your